In the quiet waterfront neighborhoods of Panama City, Florida, people still remember the day everything changed. A stay-at-home mom brutally murdered, an 8-year-old boy walking into a nightmare, a young carpenter, someone the family actually knew, suddenly becoming the prime suspect. But that was only the beginning, because this man didn't just kill, he escaped. He cut his way out of a 6th-floor window, tied bed sheets together, and crawled out of a private jail like he was in an action movie, all while awaiting trial for one of the cruelest murders the region had ever seen. And 36 years later, Florida strapped him to a gurney, making him the 18th man executed this year, a number higher than any year in the state's history. This is the story of Allen Geralds, the murder of Tressa Lynn Pettis, the decades of legal warfare that followed, and the long-awaited moment her family finally said, "Tomorrow, for the first time in 37 years, we don't have to worry about another appeal." February 1, 1989. A sunny afternoon in Panama City, Florida. Kids getting home from school, parents starting dinner. Nothing unusual, until 8-year-old Bart Pettibone walked through the front door of his family's home and found his mother dead on the kitchen floor. Not just stabbed, but beaten, tied up, gagged, and tortured. At least 20 agonizing minutes passed before she took her final breath, according to prosecutors. The home was ransacked, jewelry missing, designer sunglasses gone. Her Mercedes, nowhere to be found. In one moment, a child's world shattered. In one moment, investigators realized this wasn't random. This was targeted, personal, planned. And the clues were everywhere, just waiting for detectives to connect them. About a week before the murder, something strange happened, something no one realized was important at the time. Tressa was at the mall with Bart and his sister Blythe when they ran into a familiar face, Allen Geralds, a 22-year-old carpenter who had remodeled part of their home the year before. Friendly chit-chat, nothing alarming. But then Tressa casually mentions, "Kevin's out of town on business." That single sentence may have sealed her fate, because moments later, Geralds approached Bart at the arcade alone and started asking questions a stranger shouldn't ask a child. "When does your dad come home? What time do you and your sister leave for school? What time do you get back?" At the time, the kids thought nothing of it, but after the murder, those conversations took on a chilling new meaning. Geralds didn't just lose control. He prepared. He studied. He waited. Detectives reviewing the Pettibone home quickly realized they were dealing with a suspect who knew the layout, maybe even the routine. But the real turning point came that same afternoon, because while Tressa was lying dead on her kitchen floor, Geralds walked into a pawn shop and sold jewelry that once belonged to her, still carrying microscopic traces of her blood. He also gave a pair of designer sunglasses to a friend, sunglasses missing from the crime scene. Then police found plastic ties used to bind Tressa's wrists. Identical ties were in Gerald's car. Piece by piece, the picture sharpened. He wasn't there by accident. He didn't panic. He went inside expecting to get something. Prosecutors later said he believed the family had $7,000 in cash hidden in the home, and when he couldn't find it, they say he tortured Tressa in an attempt to make her tell him where it was. One of the prosecutors described her final minutes as agonizing torture. She bled to death in her own home. By the time the evidence was laid out, there was no doubt. Geralds didn't stumble into this crime. He walked in with purpose. But even with the walls closing in, he wasn't done. Not by a long shot. In 1990, while awaiting trial at the Bay County Jail, Florida's first privately run jail, Geralds pulled off something straight out of a prison escape movie. He didn't do it alone either. The operation took planning, tools, and help. According to investigators, Gerald's wife smuggled saw blades to him during visitation. Inside his cell, he and 4 other maximum security inmates went to work, cutting through the metal window frame of their 6th-floor unit. Then came step 2, a rope made of bed sheets and blankets. When the moment came, the inmates punched out the window, slipped through the opening, and rappelled down the outside of the building, from 6 floors up. Think about that. Facing the death penalty and still saying, "I'll take my chances." But luck didn't follow him after the rope reached the ground. Most of the escapees, including Geralds, were captured within hours. And his attempt to flee didn't just fail, it destroyed any hope of sympathy from a future jury. The jailbreak became part of his story forever. When Gerald stood trial, prosecutors left nothing to imagination. The evidence, the brutality, the planning, the escape, everything stacked higher than the last. He was convicted of first-degree murder, armed robbery, burglary, kidnapping, and more. During sentencing, his lawyers tried to paint a different picture. He's young. He has bipolar disorder. He came from a broken home. He loves his wife and daughter. But the jury looked at the facts, at the 20-minute beating, at the torture, at the child who found his mother, at the escape, and decided death. His original sentence was overturned on appeal, but that didn't help him. He was resentenced to death again in 1992, and then began one of the longest legal journeys the Pettibone family could possibly imagine.
36 years. That's how long the Pettibone family had to watch courts, lawyers, judges, and politicians debate the fate of a man who had destroyed their world. Appeal after appeal, motion after motion, year after year. And even when they thought it was over, something new would appear. A new law, a new challenge, a new delay. But in 2024 and 2025, everything changed. Florida started moving fast. The state hit 18 executions in a single year, the highest in its history, more than double the previous record of 8. Another one was already scheduled for the following week. Nationally, Geralds became the 45th execution in the U.S. this year, the highest count since 2010. And when Geralds' warrant was signed, he didn't fight it. He simply told the judge, "I'm done. No more appeals." For the Pettibone family, this was the moment they had waited almost 4 decades to hear. They released a statement. "Tomorrow, when we wake up, it will be the first time in 37 years we don't have to worry about another appeal." And then came December 9th, 2025. On the evening of December 9th, Geralds was led into the death chamber at Florida State Prison. 6 p.m. He was strapped to the gurney, IV lines inserted, witnesses watching from glass windows, the room cold, quiet, sterile. When asked if he had final words, he spoke, but the name he addressed was inaudible. His final message, "I'm sorry that I missed you. I loved you every day." Those were the last words he would ever say. When the lethal drugs started flowing, he took a dozen deep breaths. His body trembled. His mouth opened and closed. And then, within minutes, he became still. Time of death, 6:15 p.m. Just like that, a 36-year chapter closed. But the story wasn't really about him. It was always about Tressa. Tressa Pettibone was a 33-year-old mother, originally from Ohio, building a life with her husband and 2 children in a beautiful waterfront neighborhood. She loved her kids fiercely enough that her daughter Blythe still posts tributes every Mother's Day. On a 2024 post she wrote, "You taught me how to be a mom. You set the bar so high." In another message, she said there's never a moment she doesn't wish her mom were here, especially when life gets heavy and she needs advice. Tressa wasn't just a victim. She was a protector, a defender, a mother who would have fought like hell for her children. And life gave the Pettibone family another cruel blow in 2022 when Tressa's son, Bart, the little boy who found her body, died suddenly at age 41. His obituary said, "He went home to be with his beloved mother and Jesus." 3 generations scarred, 3 decades of pain, but finally, a chapter closed. Mark Allen Geralds' story is full of twists: a murder, a mall encounter that became evidence, a pawn shop visit hours after the crime, a jail escape, a resentencing, decades of appeals, and a final decision to stop fighting. But at the center of everything was Tressa, a mother whose life was taken in a moment of cruelty and whose family had to keep living in the aftermath. On December 9, 2025, they finally got what they had been waiting 36 years for: closure. No more appeals, no more delays, no more fear that something might change. Just the quiet, heavy finality of justice, long delayed, but finally delivered. And for a family that spent nearly 4 decades grieving, remembering, and fighting, that meant everything.